I'm not just there to kind of play startup and raise loads of money. And then, it's more about profitability than just scaling at all costs.
This episode is brought to you by Mozcon, the leading SEO conference where you will learn to become a better search marketer. Hello, and welcome to another episode of MozPod. Today, our guest is Rod Richmond. Rod has over 15 years of experience in digital marketing, and he has scaled startups to 1 million MRR. Post-agency life, he was CMO at an EV scale-up brand, and recently, he founded SideStep, a referral hiring platform for marketers. It's Rod Richmond. Welcome to MozPod, Rod.
Great to be here.
I'm just going to get into it because those numbers are wowed. You are on your third startup now. I want to go back to your first company where
Sure.
you successfully exited. Why did you leave after over a decade?
So yeah, it was my first business was a marketing agency. So I kind of set it up more out of necessity than
What do you mean
something-
necessity?
Necessity was more just I'd come back from working in America for 6 months, and I decided that I didn't want to go back at that time. So I was like, right, I'm going to stay in the UK for a bit. I didn't want to go and get a job at an agency. So I thought I'll start freelancing, see how that goes. Within a few months, freelancing, I turned into, right, let's just run a small agency. And then it kind of snowballed from there. So I wanted to set up a business, but I'd never set out to start a marketing agency. I just happened to work in paid media for a long time. So that's where my expertise were. It was kind of when Google Shopping was just like first being called Google Shopping. So not many people were doing that well. I had some e-commerce background, so it was just a good time to get set up. And yeah, so I kind of set it up out of necessity and didn't intend to set up an agency. It was a freelancer turned into an agency.
So when did
model.
you know it was the right time to exit?
To exit, I think I kind of got to the point where, so obviously, I was a big fan of like being specialists in our area. So we just did paid media, so it was paid search and paid social, right? A lot of e-commerce clients, a lot of Google Shopping, and I would have these conversations with clients and, owners of businesses. And I realized that there was a lot of stuff that they should be doing beyond the paid that, was really going to have an impact, whether that was investing in product or, rethinking their website platform or, doubling down on organic. And I was like, I didn't want to add those channels on as an afterthought to my agency. I wanted the agency to be very specialist, but I just knew that's, I wasn't able to scale it like that. So I didn't want to add in new channels. I knew that there was all these things these businesses need to be doing, but I just wasn't able to do it with the agency. So I kind of got to the point where I was like, I had a business partner, Rory, who's, a fantastic guy. We're still really good mates to this day. And we just had a frank conversation. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to do this for another 5 years. Whereas I think he was happy to. We had a fantastic team, built great clients, but I just, I realized there was more stuff I wanted to do. So we had an honest kind of conversation late 2019. And then early 2020, I was officially out of the business and wanted to go on and do my next thing. And then I was straight into fractional CMO work when COVID hit. So it was an interesting time. A lot of startups were kind of in pause mode and, but they needed to get traction. So as and when the next funding round closed, they could do something. So it was the timing worked out really well.
Okay. How did your experience of building and exiting your first company shape your approach to entrepreneurship?
I think obviously with an agency, it's, there's a very low barrier to entry, right? So you can just set up an agency tomorrow if you like. You got a couple of friends and bring in, you inherit a couple of clients, the very low startup costs, and then you can bootstrap it from there. So I think an agency is a really good first business to kind of run because it doesn't cost a lot to get into it, and then you can scale it up if you have good people. So, it put a lot of emphasis on like the bootstrapping, lean startup style of doing things. You don't need to raise loads and loads of money. It's not a very capital intensive business. So I think I've taken that into the next few businesses in terms of like, I'm not just there to kind of play startup and raise loads of money. And then, it's more about profitability than just, scaling at all costs. And I think in an agency as well, you have to take really good care of people and develop people because it's without the people, you have no business, right? So I'm a big advocate for like, training up people, putting them in the right seats, helping them progress and things like that. So that's really helped with, hiring marketing teams and, advising on whether they should go down the agency route or make an internal hire. So yeah, I think you learn so much stuff from running an agency that's applicable to every type of business that I've worked in since.
Was the agency the first company that you took to 1 million MRR?
So the agency wasn't at 1 million MRR.
It was the next one. That was your first startup.
It was the
Okay,
EV scale up.
I just wanted to clarify. So how long did it take to get the EV scale up to 1 million?
So obviously in that scenario, there's a lot of different moving pieces at play. There was market conditions, economic conditions. So it wasn't just marketing as much as I'd love to say. It was all marketing. We were geniuses. It was like we had a fantastic founding team. We had a great customer team, great product team, great ops team. So, we were just part of that as a place. So, I consulted with them for about 18 months. Then I came in full time for 18 months. At that point, they were being acquired at that stage. And then that, released a lot of capital, which they could use to, we had to buy cars, right? It was electric car subscriptions. So we had to buy lots of cars. And then from there, we're talking late 2021. So there was still a bit of a hangover from COVID in terms of you couldn't get electric cars very easily. There was a big backlog in, supply if you were ordering direct from the manufacturers, and there wasn't a lot of used EVs in the market either. So I think we just, we timed it really well. So as and when I kind of came in full time, it took it's about 18 months from starting full time from, just a handful of cars in the fleet to the number where we're hitting that 1 million MRR mark.
Okay, let's dig into the growth strategy for hitting that 1 million. What growth strategy did you implement, and when was the moment you realized that this company is going to make bank?
I think I actually knew the company was going to be big when I first met the founding team. So I first had a conversation with Ollie and Luke when we were all just in our spare bedrooms in April 2020, and we're all like, what's going on? They'd been working on the idea for quite a while before then, a few months before then. And I just knew from speaking to them, I was like, they're just super smart. They've got a good grasp. They had great market experience, and they're very switched on in terms of marketing and growth. So I was like, when I met them first, I knew they were onto a good idea, and I still didn't know a lot about electric cars. And I was like, this seems like a good way to get into it, to get behind the wheel of one. So I was like, that was the first inkling I had. And then when I knew the growth was really going to kick off was basically, so at the time of acquisition, you come in and you do all these forecasts and you're planning marketing budgets for the year ahead or for 3 years. Then you're mapping that out against, okay, how many cars we're going to need, how many internal people are we going to need to deliver this, and what external resource do we need? And so we did all these forecasts, we did all these budgets, and obviously within that you're looking at your media spend, you're looking at the people you need to hire, you're looking at projected traffic, projected conversion rates, and how many new drivers we can get on a monthly basis. And we planned all that out. 1 month later, once we started putting the plan into action and we started driving some real traffic to the website, the conversion rate was 3 times what we projected. So straight away I was like, okay, market conditions are good. Lots of people want an electric car. We have the electric cars and we have a really good offer in here. And wow, the conversion rate from brand new person to the website to actually making a booking was 3 times better than what we expected. So at that point I was like, at first I thought something was broken, but then once I realized it wasn't broken, I was like, okay, this has got a lot of traction here. This company's going to go really, really well. We just need to kind of keep going and make sure we've got the team to deliver it.
Okay, I know it wasn't all just roses on that part. What were the most significant barriers that you faced when trying to scale up?
Obviously, there's, because we'd been acquired, we were part of a bigger company. So you have other people want to try things, or you see other people are bringing things to the table. I think the thing with marketing, right, is everyone is exposed to marketing at some point during their day. So everyone has an idea or a friend or a cousin who's doing something. It could be TikTok. It could be they've seen an ad on Twitter. It could be they've seen something at the tube station and they're like, oh, we should be doing that. And you're like, okay, yeah, we absolutely should. We could do that. But we need to be sensitive to the fact we have a budget to stick to, and we know the channels that are working really well. And we still had a relatively lean team. We don't want to get distracted with that new kind of shiny thing. So one of the big barriers was really just focusing down on what's working and not getting too distracted by something cool we could be trying, especially in the EV space. It's, it's new, it's modern. Everyone's, the manufacturers were spending lots and lots of money on it, and they were doing cool stuff and cool brand activations. It was just kind of like staying in our lane, focusing on the channels that were doing really, really well, and skilling them up without getting, distracted. So that was the one kind of key challenge I can think of, and having to explain our strategy off the back of that.
Hey there, my name is Chima Meje, and I want to take a moment to talk to you about Mozcon, our podcast sponsor. I know Mozcon comes with a hefty price tag, but here's why it's worth it. Mozcon attracts the kind of people you dream of running into at an SEO conference. I'm talking about decision makers, C-suite executives, and the top marketing leaders in the industry. At Mozcon, these hallway conversations are just as valuable as the sessions themselves. If you're aiming to network with senior experts, chat up hiring managers, and expand your circle with high-quality connections, then you will be in excellent company at Mozcon. So don't overthink it. Click that purchase button right now. I can't wait to see you at Mozcon in June. As an incentive, you'll get $100 off a group purchase of 5 tickets or more. So bring your team to Mozcon with you. Grab a ticket at mz.cm/podcast. What unique skills do you think marketers bring to bootstrap companies?
So I think by our nature, we're obviously very performance focused, lots of reports, figuring out what's working, what's not. It's not just a pure awareness place. So I think especially digital marketers bring a lot of understanding as to how everything's connected, right? So it's how all the different channels work together, and assembling teams, and empathy is a big one as well. So it's the data side of things, but it's also the empathy. They're always thinking about the customer, because you can't write good ads and you can't run good campaigns if you don't think about the end user, right? So that's something that we're very good at, is then speaking to the customer, getting feedback, using that to improve the product. So I think that those two things are the key things I think marketers are very good at.
Cool. Let's talk about the products, because without the products, what are you selling, right?
Yeah.
And product market fit is very, very important for any successful startup. How do you identify product market fit for your startups?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's various startups, the EV scale up and everything was a little bit different to some of the other startups I've consulted with. You have to start with an ICP, like an ideal customer profile. You have to have a rough feel for where they spend their time online, and what their pain points are. Is it, I really like the marketing terminology, the kind of painkiller versus vitamin products. So kind of understanding what's their painkiller thing, what will they definitely pay for. So having a rough idea of the ICP, setting out with some test campaigns across a few different channels, and then just once you've got the first few customers, really just engaging with them. Better to have 10 customers, 20 customers and make a loss, but really understand, where the next 200 are going to come from and what they'll pay for, than, get 10 or 20 customers paying for a month and then disappearing and you never speak to them again. So it's okay to make a loss for the first 10, 20, 30, 40, something like that. And that's just rinse and repeat, systemized testing. That's how you find the product market fit.
That's really good advice. Yeah. And talking about customers, what strategies have you found most effective for acquiring your first 100 customers?
Yeah, so I guess it all depends on the scale of the business and the cost per product. If it's a $10 SaaS product, it's very different to a £1,200 a month Tesla. Two very different customer types. But I really think if you have a strong background in digital, and especially paid social, paid search, you should be able to find your first 100 customers with paid search if you've got the budget for that. If you're not at that stage where you're willing to invest, or you can't invest that level of capital, then partnerships are definitely the one that I would go after next. It can be a bit more cost effective. Find complementary companies to what you're doing, who are maybe slightly different verticals, or further down the funnel. Partner with them, make it super appealing for them, lose a little bit of money, but it'll probably still be less than your customer acquisition cost on Google ads. And yeah, so between partnerships and paid ads, I think you can definitely find your first 100 across most industries. Yeah.
If you're looking back on your journey, is there anything you would have done different about early customer acquisition?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when going back to the EV scale up, we did have to experiment with quite a lot of channels that we just had to see if that was something that was going to work, even if we weren't 100%. We had to test, right? So there was a couple of times we did we spent a lot on events, and in-person events, and those can be very expensive, very time consuming as well, and that takes away from our working on the channels that really really work. So we did do a few in-person events that were great to test and great to speak to customers, but in terms of like a pure ROI perspective, and it's not something I would invest in for that. If it's more B2B play, then 100% I see the value of an event. You meet one good contact and it pays for the event for the next 3 years. But from a B2C perspective, unless you're a much bigger, more established brand, the events can be something that's very expensive, and you don't always get the return, especially in those early days where kind of budgets are so sensitive.
I hope that's a lesson for anyone who's starting a B2C startup and they're watching this right now.
Better to go undercover and kind of like go and just attend and speak to people than go through the effort of putting on these big stands and exhibitions and stuff and activations. 9 times out of 10 you'll get the same results just by
from
attending
networking.
and having presence. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. What are the most valuable lessons you've learned from building and scaling startups?
Valuable lessons. I guess, it's something I think about a lot, is like the level of funding that people raise. So, you see there's a lot of hot spaces right now. Obviously the VC market and the startup funding market is cooling, especially in the US right now. But I think that's a good thing. It's a natural correction, because sometimes it's like Parkinson's law for time, right? So if you've got an hour to do something, you'll do it in 1 hour. It's the same with funding. If you have £1 million to spend, funnily enough, you'll spend £1 million, right? But where does that money go? Well, the majority of it goes on people and advertising. So as a thought experiment, it's always worthwhile being like, could we raise less? Could we raise could we raise 500,000 rather than 1 million? Don't just take that first offer, group of offers and use that, because that money can go very, very quickly in startup land. So just, it's okay to sometimes raise a bit less. You keep more control, more equity. But yeah, it's tricky. Startups, there's a lot of ego attached to the valuations of your company. But yeah, as a thought experiment, if we raise less, where would that go? Could we be more efficient with it and maintain more control of our startups?
What advice would you give to marketers that are watching this and they're like, I want to start my own startup? What advice would you give to them? What pitfalls would you also ask them to avoid?
So I guess to answer the first part of the question, I would say if you're a marketer, you've already got such a good skill set for setting up a company. You understand, like I said, we're talking about empathy, understanding customers, everything's linked to performance at the end of the day, really understand that attribution, and you can very quickly get a feel for what's working, what's not. You're in a really good position to get those first 100 customers, prove that the product, you've got product market fit, and then scale from there, just by the very nature of our jobs. And also another good thing, something I notice more and more, is like with the pace that technology is evolving, with AI, with no code tools, it's actually much easier, I think, to be a CMO and kind of hack something together product wise. So then be a CTO with like a fantastic, technical background, and then do the marketing piece. I think just the way that technology is changing, it's much easier to do it from a marketer, build a product, than be a product person and then just figure out marketing from scratch, at least from my experience.
And the pitfalls, what should they be looking to avoid?
Pitfalls, kind of like I alluded to earlier, is just the shiny things, distractions, so obviously there's going to be new channels that we could be present on, but if you try and do 15 things, subpar, it's going to always be subpar results. Take the 3 channels that you're great at, just smash them, and then don't get too distracted by what's cool or what's new.
All right. What is one thing you do every day that brings you a tiny pocket of joy?
I should do it every day, but I don't necessarily do it every day. But my wife and I, we do a lot of running. So just getting outside, I spend a lot of time in front of a computer, especially kind of building my own thing now, and I have done for the last few years. So just getting out, getting that fresh air, getting moving, that always, I come back, I've got new ideas.
How long do you run?
At the moment, maybe like if it was just like a lunchtime run, like 5 or 6 miles.
Lunchtime run?
Yeah, like a lunchtime run. It's good to break up the day. Yeah, do a lunchtime run. And then, like lunchtime run?
I can't even imagine running after I've had food.
Oh no, this is before food.
Okay.
You run and then come back and then you can eat whatever you want. So maybe I get more joy from the eating part once I've come back from the run than the actual run.
Now you're being honest.
Exactly, yeah.
You enjoy the food after the lunchtime run.
I hate the run, love the food. That's it. Okay.
See, I can relate with that. I can definitely relate with that. All right, and that's it. Thank you to my guest, Rod Richmond. This episode was engineered by Saul Fox, produced by Chima Major and Joe Cameron, and our YouTube footage was filmed and edited by Sarah Galpin. That's it for MozPod. And remember, curiosity didn't kill the cat, it just improved the search rankings. Bye-bye.